somebody said they're probably now against the concept of living alone. And that is a very interesting statement. I want to tell you guys my thoughts from a financial standpoint, a personal standpoint, and more, because I love this topic, and we're going to get through it today. But it's Marcus Fraser from Teachable Tuesdays, here to motivate you, encourage you, and inspire you to be a better you. Thank you for joining me today. Greatly appreciate it. It's been a little minute since I've done an outside video. But as always, if you could, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you stay up to date with my Teachable Tuesday videos. And yeah, let's keep this thing going. So, what are my thoughts on living by yourself? Well, I think the best people to have this argument would be individuals who've lived with other people and also have lived by themselves, right? And we're not even going to read the comments today. We're just going to take a deep dive into it, and I'm going to tell you my perspective, and we're going to bounce. So, I've lived with other people. I've also lived by myself in terms of me being an adult. Obviously, when I was a kid, lived with my parents, go figure, right? But as an adult, right, I've had roommates outside of college, of course. Matter of fact, my first place that I got, well, I was in college at the time, but my first place that I got off campus, I had two roommates. It was another guy that we knew from Cookman together and my line brother. It was three of us, 3-bedroom apartment, right? Then after that, the next time I was technically staying with my girlfriend at the time for a very short period of time while I need to get on my feet. I don't really, I count that, but I don't count that. I count it because I was in the living space. I don't count it because it's not like we were paying rent together or this was something long term, right? Then I spent 3 years living by myself until I ended up going to UCF. Had a roommate at an apartment, and then we ended up moving out and getting a condo together. Unfortunately, he passed away February of 2021. And then after that, I moved back in by myself, and I've been living by myself ever since. So technically speaking, I've been living by myself for 5 years straight. Well, I guess 8.5 years in total. Yeah, 5 years straight, 8.5 years total. And the time that I've had roommates have been a total of, I'm going to say by technicality, 2.5 years. So my thoughts are simply like this. I think it really depends on your given circumstances, right? I understand the idea of wanting a roommate. And I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of each. So I think the idea of wanting a roommate stems from two things. Number one, there's somebody that you really want to get along with and you want to make things more feasible from a financial standpoint. Or number two, you are just in desperate need from a financial standpoint. That person might not necessarily be someone that you get along with, like a close friend or something, but you guys understand that two heads are better than one, and you can save money and have more fun. You feel me? So that's how some people look at it. Also, family members will stay together for the same reason. You might have brothers that might stay together, sisters that might stay together, a brother and a sister that might stay together, cousins, so on and so forth. Then you have some people that would prefer to live by themselves. And the main reason why they would prefer to live by themselves is because they just love their independence, right? They love being able to move how they want to move. I can tell you right now, somebody who's lived by himself for, like I said, 8.5 years in total, 5 years straight. It's a beautiful thing knowing that I can come home and I ain't got to answer nobody. I ain't got to worry about nobody. I can do whatever the heck I want because it's my place. I could invite anybody over that I want to invite over. Well, I mean, almost anybody at this point because I'm in a relationship. I can't be inviting random women over. You know what I'm saying? But you get what I'm saying. You get the gist of what I'm saying. There's not really many restrictions because I don't have to compromise with anyone. And that can most certainly be a pro to living by yourself. So let's talk about the pros and cons of living by yourself versus roommates. Let's talk about living by yourself first. We're going to give 3 pros and 3 cons. One of the pros I just gave you. You really don't have to compromise. You're kind of just doing things on your own will, your own accord, and you're just going from there, right? Ain't got to really answer nobody, not really any restrictions, things like that. The second pro to living by yourself, I say, would be, were you ready to just pack up and go? You could just pack up and go, right? So let's say you got a new job. You don't have to take anybody consideration or keep anybody in mind. It's like, you ain't even gotta let nobody know nothing. Like when Kato and I were living together, before he passed away, I told him that I was gonna be moving out. And it was nothing bad as far as the reason. We were getting along just fine. You know, became great friends, great roommates. It was just I was ready to get my own place again, right? But yeah, you ain't gotta answer nobody. It's like, you know, if I decide I wanna move to California next year, I can just get up and go. All right, bye. I mean, in a sense, I have to talk to somebody about it. I mean, I have to talk to my girl about it, but I have to talk to a roommate about it. You know what I'm saying? It's not gonna affect my or our living situation. Number 3, I think the third pro to living by yourself is when it comes to setup, right? What makes a home is what the setup looks like, right? Setups do matter. I know a lot of times men, we don't always think about that. Women think about that a little bit more. That's why I agree with the phrase, a woman does indeed make a home. That's very true. But we don't really think about that as men, right? Ain't really our thing. Should be our thing. I'm working on it being more my thing because I want my home to feel more homey. But yeah, you can set up however you want to set up. If you only got a few pieces of furniture, that's you. You do you, man. If you ain't got no bed frame, please don't do that. I can't tell you how many years. One of these days, I'm going to just tell some embarrassing stories about how I've lived. And I'm not saying I lived bad, but I'm older now, and I think back to some of the ways I lived, and I was very much a minimalist. But it was a minimalist to the extreme, right? There was no reason why I didn't get a bed frame until 2022. Ain't no excuse. But we'll talk about that in another day, right? Some of y'all already looking at me like, dang, Marcus, what's wrong with you? You putting all your, but yeah, like I said, we're transparent on this channel. Accountability at its finest, right? Let's talk about some of the cons of living by yourself. I think one of the cons of living by someone's self is from a financial standpoint, right? Even if you have a good job that pays really well, guess what? You're covering everything. You are covering everything. Unless you got parents that are helping you out, which I guarantee you, unless you're in college, you're probably not. Or at least you shouldn't be. It's my personal opinion. Or at least helping you out with everything. Then yeah, you're going to pay for everything out of pocket on your own accord, right? I tell you one thing, living by yourself is very peaceful, but financially, that junk hits you. I think the second pro could be the protection piece, right? If something go down, let's be real and call it $150. You're going to have to be the one to handle it. Ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it, all right? And that's just what it is. You got to handle it, and you got to make sure it's handled accordingly, right? If you don't handle it, then, well, you're kind of out of gas, you feel me? At least when you're living with roommates, you got that form of protection, which we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Third con to living by yourself, I would say, is really lack of additional resources. And I don't mean that just from a financial standpoint. I mean that also from the standpoint of, if you live with somebody, like I said, 2 heads are better than 1. And not just for fun, but also to get things done. Yeah, I'm spitting bars today. I'm a hip hop artist. Y'all should know that. I might not know how to do something, but my roommate might. There were a lot of things that when Kato and I lived together, Kato was very hands-on. So when it came to fixing things, he had it. You know what I'm saying? That's one thing I can say Kato for sure had over me. That man was able to fix things like it was no tomorrow, no issue at all. Mr. Handyman at his finest. He gave me a toolkit for Christmas back in 2020. I still have that toolkit to this day, right? But when it came to resources as far as information, you know, diving deep into different resources from the internet, research, things like that, that's where I had the leg up, right? So we were able to use those 2 resources to work together in order to make our home flow smooth, right? I would say that's a pro of having a roommate. I'm gonna just put that out there right now. But yeah, I think that's a con of being single. You might not have all the additional extended resources that you would like, right? So what are the pros and cons of having a roommate? Pros of having a roommate, obviously financially, it's a lot better, right? Especially when you have a roommate that's doing what they're supposed to be doing. You're able to split up bills, you split rent, or maybe one person pays for rent and the other person pays utilities, however you may do it. With Cato, we split the mortgage down the middle for the condo, and I took care of a few utilities, and we just went from there. Especially considering that we were just college individuals. I ain't gonna say college kids, because by the time I graduated from UCF, I was 30. So I ain't gonna say college kid, but college students. You know what I'm saying? The second pro to having a roommate, like I mentioned with the con to being single, is the extra form of protection. Something go down, you know what I'm saying? You're not the only one in the house dealing with it. Now, obviously, in this case, this wouldn't be for roommates, but if you're like married and you a man, then you should be the one to protect your woman. And that was thunder. I hope it does not rain, because goodness gracious, I did not finish this workout yet.
Time 20.
So that's how that would go. Definitely more the protection piece. And I think the third pro to having a roommate is the ability to kind of, I guess, think outside the box when getting perspectives, right? And I bring it up because I know for sure there were a lot of things that I thought about that Cato didn't think about when we lived together, and vice versa. And even when I was living with my roommate, Sam and Prentice, back in 2014 when I went to Cookman, you know, we all had different thought processes, and when we came together, we made it work, right? So what are the cons of having roommates? Well, one could be lack of privacy to some degree. And I say to some degree because, I mean, let's face it, you ain't finna be by yourself, you know what I'm saying? Number two is you do have to be more considerate. And I know some people might not think of it as a con, but some people might. They might be like, I just want to roll on my own accord. I just want to do what I want to do. Well, if you want to do what you want to do, you probably shouldn't have a roommate, right? You are going to have to be considerate when you have a roommate. I remember when I would communicate with Cato, and I would tell him if I was bringing company over, regardless if it was a woman I was talking to at the time or, you know, one of my best friends. And we would both be like with each other, because he would bring his girl over, and we would both be like, man, you ain't got to tell me, but it's a respect that we had for each other to let each other know, hey, I'm bringing company over, especially if it's somebody that he don't know. Like, obviously, if he brought his girl, Lana, over, shout out to Lana, by the way, then, you know, he ain't to say nothing after a while, because that's his girl. But I know me, besides my best friends, if I brought somebody over, it might have been somebody that he may not have known, and I had to be considerate. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to be considerate. If you're not going to be considerate, then you don't need a roommate, once again. But some people could look at that as a con, especially if you're on the selfish side. And the third and final con to having a roommate would be the fact that you need to think, and this goes to the consideration part, before you make major life decisions, major updates, moving situations, so on and so forth, you really need to think strongly about what you're doing before you do it. Because you have to be considerate, going back to that consideration piece, right? You know, if I had a roommate right now, I could just tell them, hey, I'm getting up and moving tomorrow. If I wanted to move tomorrow on my own accord right now, I could do it. Nobody can stop me. Can't do that with a roommate. Can't. You know what I'm saying? These are things that need to be thought of. These are things that need to be considered, okay? So final verdict, would I live by myself continuously, or would I have a roommate? I think I would continue to live by myself, me personally. Because as tough as it can be sometimes from a financial standpoint, there's a certain amount of peace I get from after working 2 jobs throughout the week, going home, showering, and just knowing I can put whatever I want on the TV. I ain't got to compromise for nobody. I can do what I'm going to do, and so on and so forth, right? And I know some people might ask, well, Marcus, what about when you get married? I cross that bridge when I get there. Until then, I'm enjoying being, or should I say not being, but living alone. right? I don't have to make adjustments for anybody right now. I know there will come a time when I get married, which I do want to get married, that I will have to make adjustments. But for now, I don't, and I won't. As much as appealing as it would be to have a roommate to help out from a financial standpoint, I've been living more on my own than I've been living with somebody in my adult life. So it's really one of those things where it's just like, I'm used to what I'm used to, and I just grind it out for what it is. So what should you do? Once again, that all depends on you. But this is Marcus Frazier from Teachable Tuesdays, here to motivate you, encourage you, and inspire you to be a better you. Love you guys. Hope you have a great day. Talk to you soon. Peace.